Hello, hello. It is getting kind of late. It's about 20 minutes to 10 on Thursday, July 17th. I'm coming at you live from the southwestern quadrant of Ohio, and I'm actually coming on to read an extremely sad article. So let me get started with all my normal stuff. Sound check. If anybody is here and you can help me out if you can hear me or not. And I will see if the lighting is all right. It's very dim, and I apologize for that. Since I have moved my office or my studio, as I call it, I'm so fancy. Since I moved from the room next door, it's just been really tough to get the lighting. So it's either like too light and glaring, and then I'm like glowing in the dark, or it's really dim. So still working on it. Thanks for your patience. I think I have the sound all right. And what else? Make sure that you're still subscribed. If you are subscribed, if you're not, please consider doing so. And share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel. Turn on your notification bell to ring. Hit your like button, please. And everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. And this is just so sad. So, I mean, the news has just been flooded with all of the political and true crime shenanigans that have had a head on collision in the form of the Epstein crap-ola. And it's just so bad. It's just in such poor taste. It's like my heart breaks for the victims and the families of the victims. Some of those victims aren't alive anymore. Many of them are. And how insane to be gaslit by your president and his entire cabinet, in my opinion. That's what I see going on. I do want to take a second to put a couple of super cute little statue things here. Let me see if I can make a little more light too without making too much light. Simply because I'm about to go into some really, really heavy duty sad material. What I'm going to read to you is, I got a little tiny church right here, so let's put that right there. Pray for the victims of the floods. This is an article that was just published today about the victims from the Mystic Camp Mystic. I think it's Mystic Camp in Texas, in Kerrville. And for those that have been watching my videos lately, you'll remember that I have been kind of fixated on the tragedy, specifically of the smallest children in the camp. I'm going to try not to cry. So I found out from digging and digging and digging that the youngest campers had to have at least finished second grade, meaning that the youngest ones were the 8 and 9-year-old group. There were a couple of 7-year-olds in there. However, I don't think any of the 7-year-olds passed away. The total number of fatalities, thank goodness they've recovered all of people's loved ones' remains, but the total number of casualties from Camp Mystic, I believe, is 26 or 27. Can look again. I think one article I saw said one number, and a different article said another number. Let me just throw some numbers out here that I remember off the top of my head. And like I said, I'll try not to cry. I'm just going to hit it. 18 of the victims were 8 years old. 8. Tiny. I mean, I have large children. I have very large kids. They're all probably going to be 6 feet tall I mean, my youngest isn't done growing yet. The 3 older are all 6 feet and over. Well, my daughter's like 5'11", but we like to cheat and say 6 feet. Close enough, right? The boys are over 6 feet. My youngest is 13 and she's 5'9". That's 13. So big children, they all come out at 10 pounds. But what the whole reason I'm talking about them is to distract myself from the absolute pain and tragedy of these 8-year-olds who had to fight for their lives in the flood. So 8 years old is really when my children went from tiny to like a giant blossom growth spurt. So even my fairly large kids were still pretty small at 8, but then it was that 8th year that they really turned a corner in their growth and were pretty big. So I think it was 5 of the victims were 9 years old. One of the victims was a 10-year-old. And then 2 of the victims were camp counselors, so 18 years old and 19 years old. And then the last one that I can remember off the top of my head is the owner of Camp Kerr, and he was 70. So he passed away, I think, in his truck with 3 of the 8-year-old campers. He'd been making trips trying to get the campers from the low ground to the higher ground. So in the thumbnail, I put a screenshot or a photograph. It was a screenshot of the way the way those buildings sit in the flood zone. And you can see, like, at the top of the picture is the fork where Guadalupe River and a much smaller fork meet up. And it's really not a good place to have a cabin. And I think that what they said was that every year they considered there being a 1% chance of there being a flood. So what happened with the bubble inn, which is nobody in that cabin survived, not one. And that was all 8 and 9-year-olds. I think it was 12 8 and 9-year-old campers and 1 18-year-old counselor. So they had the water, like 8 feet of water coming at them from 2 sides. And so that's why it was so impossible to survive it for these folks. And it filled up the buildings, and those who did survive, I think, were pushed out of the windows with the water, like they swam out of the windows. But the water was full of debris. It had the boats, the canoes, the oars. It had trees. It had furniture. It had, the campers' trunks. It just had too many items that could wound you if you weren't drowning already. So, like I said, I'm going to read this article. I just wanted to give you the nitty-gritty, most painful part right up front. The reason I'm reading this article is just to provide all of us with the details, because I find information healing. And if you're like me, you've been hit really hard by this flood, even though, like, personally, I don't know of anyone that I know that was there or that had any loved ones there. My oldest daughter is in Austin still tonight, but that's probably a 90-minute drive from where the floods were. I mentioned a couple of times to you guys that when she was flying in over the weekend, there were flood alerts in Austin. And I guess now there's been some really bad flooding in Vermont, too, to add to the list of New Jersey and New York and Boston and Chicago and Texas, obviously, and New Mexico. So did I already say that this is a New York Post article? or I think New York Times, sorry. Big difference, right? Seriously. Let me just do the article about the Texas flood victims. All right. Here it is. Well, let me see if this is the right one. Oh, don't do this to me, New York Times. It always does this where it tries to make you do a subscription. I was going to say prescription. And then okay, maybe it's going to be easy on me. It's crazy. I got to do it again with the voice to text. I should have had it all queued up. New York Times article today about the Mystic Camp flood victims. Okay, this is it. So let's see if it's going to let me read it. It looks like it's going to. Thank goodness. Sorry to keep you waiting. All right. The July 4th tragedy at Camp Mystic outside of Hunt, Texas was concentrated at just 2 cabins where Mystic's youngest campers bunked and where a confluence of rising water from the river and a normally quiet creek swallowed the buildings before the girls could escape. Oh, did I do my thing? I think I did. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. I think I said it, but when you say something every day, you forget if you just said it or not. Okay, just because I'll be interjecting some things into this article. So even though this article obviously is not my opinion, this is written by 4 of the journalists for the New York Times. And it's titled How 2 Cabins Turned into an Epicenter of Grief. So, of the camp's 28 deaths, 15, including 2 teenage counselors, were at a cabin known as Bubble Inn, where no one survived, according to a new accounting of the fatalities by the camp. 11 of the other girls who died had been in the cabin called Twins, a pair of adjoining buildings, said Jeff Carr, a Camp Mystic spokesman. And I put red arrows pointing to the 2 buildings. The one on the right is the one called Twins, and the one that's like further down in the screenshot to the left of it is the one called Bubble Inn. So yeah, it's a lot of numbers. So 28 deaths, 15 of those were in Bubble Inn, 11 were in Twin Cabin, and then one, the 10-year-old was at a different location altogether. Okay. And they had 750 campers there. So another fatality was the camp's longtime director, Dick Eastland, who died trying to rescue campers from Bubble Inn. Only one death at the camp, a camper from a nearby cabin called Jumble House, was unconnected to Bubble Inn or Twins. So everybody in Bubble Inn passed, and about half the people from Twins passed. So half survived. The new accounting underscores how focused the raging waters were at the nearly 100-year-old Christian retreat in the Texas Hill Country. I think it's 99 years old. I think it started in like 1926. Um, the two beige stone cabins were enveloped by floodwaters that pushed in from opposite directions in the pre-dawn darkness. So this also gives a good timeline. Probably spawning eddies, trapping campers, and confusing anyone who tried to save them from the swirling pools, experts say. A dozen twins campers and their 4 counselors survived. So all of the counselors at Twins survived, Mr. Carr said. But most of the 8 and 9-year-olds in the 2 cabins nestled among pecan and live oak trees did not. That's the littlest girl, said Hillary Mine, 39, who was 9 when she was placed in Bubble Inn, and recalled fondly reading by the river and singing around a campfire when she heard about the disaster. She said, "Immediately my heart just broke, and it's been hurting since." Unlike the hilltop cabins on the edge of Camp Mystic where teenagers bunked, the cabins for the youngest girls were only a short walk from the dining hall, the staff offices, and the riverbank, where campers took part in daily classes in fishing, diving, and canoeing. The central location in a low-lying area known as the Flats made it easier for the rising 3rd and 4th graders, many of them away from their parents for the first time, to navigate the camp, especially in the scorching Texas summer heat. Texas is so hot. So hot. For anybody who doesn't know, I think most people do know. It also put the cabins between the Guadalupe River and Cypress Creek, normally a minor tributary into the much larger river. When the rain was pouring in the early hours of July 4th, both the river and the creek overflowed their banks, sending rushing water into the flats from 2 sides. So it's like walls closing in. "There is water here rising in this direction and over here rising in another direction," said Hatim Sharif, professor of civil engineering who studies flood modeling and forecasting at the University of Texas in San Antonio. "It will affect your decision of which way you should go, and I think complicates the rescue effort. The tragedy has devastated generations of Camp Mystic alumni who cherish their carefree childhood summers. They're waking up each morning to revel." I'm not sure what that is. That must be like a song or something. Reveille. Reveille. Over the loudspeaker and guessing which flavor of Bluebell ice cream would be served at lunch. That so many campers were killed in Bubble Inn and Twins, where thousands of girls have forged their earliest Camp Mystic memories and often lifelong friendships, has made the losses especially painful. In the days since the flood killed more than 130 people across Texas, a row of white crosses has been planted in the marshy grass outside Bubble Inn, bearing the names of the girls who were lost. Inside the cabin, above the waterlogged stuffed animals, sleeping bags, and sandals, the cream-colored walls have been darkened as high as 8 feet above the floor, revealing the level to which the flood rose. The water blew out the windows in that cabin and swept all of the girls and counselors out, Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, said on Friday at a roundtable meeting after visiting the site. "I've never seen anything more horrible in my life. I just sat there crying. I saw a mom and dad come up to one of those crosses and drop to their knees and kiss that cross." On June 29th, 5 days before the flood, hundreds of girls arrived at Camp Mystic from across Texas for the beginning of a month-long term. So yeah, 29th and the 30th. So I don't know why they only say the 29th, but I'll keep reading. The camp offered a portal to a simpler time. Campers weren't allowed cell phones, cabins lacked air conditioning, and days would be whiled away playing basketball, taking dance classes, and writing letters home to parents from bunk beds. I know one parent received a letter from her deceased 8-year-old kid after the kid passed away. You go through those gates and there's just beautiful open fields and these hills, and there's the mystic sign that calls to you, said Lauren Lindley, who worked as a counselor at Camp Mystic between 1999 and 2006, overseeing Bubble Inn and Twins. And the rest of the world just disappears. Ms. Lindley said she was taught to closely monitor the littles as they adjusted to camp. During the June-July session this year, several hundred girls were staying in more than 20 cabins, according to a recent handbook. Each cabin had a winking name like Chatterbox, Nut Hut, and Wiggle Inn. Among those at Camp Mystic was Catherine Ferruzzo, who had just celebrated her 19th birthday and was returning after 10 summers to her happy place to be a first-time counselor. She was headed in the fall to the University of Texas at Austin, her parents' alma mater, where she hoped to study special education. Ms. Ferruzzo would be in Bubble Inn with 13 girls and a co-counselor, Chloe Childress. So none of them made it. So 15 from that one, from Bubble Inn. Miss Childress, 18, was looking forward to starting college as a pre-med student after working at the camp she had started attending when she was as young as her new charges. On the evening of July 3rd, in the hours before the floods, the girls, dressed in white for Vespers, climbed up the camp's chapel hill, overlooking the glittering Guadalupe River. After their prayers, they slipped into their beds, lullabied to sleep by Taps, one of my favorite songs, and a heartfelt "Good night, Camp Mystic, we love you" over the loudspeaker. Thunder began cracking at around 1:30 a.m., and the power went out shortly afterward. Water began to seep inside some of the cabins in the flats where 195 girls and 48 counselors were sleeping. And remember, the whole camp is about 750 campers. So this is just the flats where there's about 200 campers and almost 50 counselors. A New York Times analysis found that Twins, along with 4 other cabins in the flats, were considered years ago to be sitting in part of the Guadalupe River's floodway, a corridor of such extreme flood hazard that many states and counties ban or severely restrict construction in floodways. Bubble Inn, a few steps farther from the river than Twins, was not in the floodway, but it was in a designated flood zone that was deemed to have a 1% chance of flooding each year. Camp Mystic challenged the flood maps and designations for many of the buildings on its campus and succeeded in getting them removed from flood zone designations. So, I read that 2 different ways, like that they challenged the flood maps so that they could keep the buildings where they were, because I thought that I had understood that some of the buildings were moved. But let me just read it again. Camp Mystic challenged the flood maps and designations for many of the buildings on its campus and succeeded in getting them removed from flood zone designations. So by challenging the flood maps, did they get the designation removed or did they remove the building? I'm not sure. Maybe some of both, possibly. But I do know also that Camp Mystic really encourages the parents to like basically lobby in their schools districts so that the schools schedules work around the camp rather than the camp working around the school schedule. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm not there. I just think it's kind of odd that the camp is trying to rule, you know. I mean, maybe that's not odd, maybe that's good. Okay. Sometime around 2 a.m., a counselor from one of the cabins closest to the river, Bug House, ran to an office and said the cabin was taking on water, according to Lisa Miller, whose 12-year-old daughter was in the cabin. Mr. Eastland evacuated the girls from that building, Ms. Miller said. The owners of the camp began driving from cabin to cabin to wake everyone up and gathering many of the girls in the camp's recreation hall. A counselor stood on the porch of one cabin and flashed her flashlight on and off, screaming for help, said Nancy Clement, who worked as a counselor at the camp this summer. The three cabins close, this is just so heartbreaking. The three cabins closest to the water, Bug House, Look In, and Hangout, were evacuated first, according Mr. Carr, the camp spokesman. A little typo there. According to Mr. Carr, the camp spokesman, but I'm adding the two. Counselors tried to keep campers calm. Some helped their girls scramble up the hill, rising behind the row of cabins that backed up to the woods. But Bubble Inn and Twins were more centrally located and did not have that option. The girls were trapped by rising floodwaters. That was the hardest part, knowing that there were girls out there fighting for their lives and there was nothing we could do. Holly Kate Hurley, a 19-year-old counselor at a nearby Mystic campus, recalled about the hours after the flood struck. So another campus, but I think that's still part of Camp Mystic. Mr. Eastland loaded girls in the dark into his Chevy Tahoe SUV and drove them to the camp's large recreation hall. He was able to transfer girls from several of the cabins close to the river, Ms. Miller said, before the water overtook him with 3 Bubble Inn campers in the truck, according to Mr. Carr. As the rain fell, both the Guadalupe River and Cypress Creek, which runs through the camp, swelled rapidly and thrust water onto the grounds. In that kind of flash flooding, the water rises quickly and spreads furiously, making it difficult for anyone to swim to safety, said Mr. Sharif, the civil engineering professor. Too much water, too little time to react. In less than 90 minutes between 2:50 a.m. and 4:10 a.m., the level of the Guadalupe River at Hunt, 5 miles downstream from Camp Mystic, surged from roughly 9 feet, which is not considered flooded, up to over 22 feet, a major flood. The river would ultimately crest that morning at 37 feet, the highest level ever recorded, according to federal weather data. Around the Bubble Inn and Twin cabins, the churning water overflowing from the river and the creek made it harder for girls to escape or for people to rescue them, Mr. Sharif said. As 2 opposing currents hit each other, he said, the water can also appear to be still for a few minutes before beginning to flow rapidly, providing a false sense of safety for someone trying to flee. That is wild. I did not catch that part when I read this earlier. What a wild phenomena right there. I'm going to read that again. As 2 opposing currents hit each other, he said, the water can also appear to be still for a few minutes before beginning to flow rapidly, providing a false sense of safety for someone trying to flee. The fast-moving floodwaters probably also carried hazardous debris like tree limbs and canoes. Jim Blackburn, a co-director of the Severe Storm Center at Rice University, called the confluence of Cypress Creek and the Guadalupe River at the camp a worst-case scenario. Envision a confluence like a street intersection, he said. If there are no stoplights or road signs, all of the traffic rushes together. So did the 2 water sources. Former campers and counselors said the Bubble Inn and Twins disaster came as a shock. Those cabins are nowhere near the river, said Catherine Howe, 48, who evacuated from Bubble Inn as a 10-year-old during the floods in 1987. In later years at Camp Mystic, Ms. Howe camped out on a hill during another flood, and staff members brought them donuts by fishing boat. We all thought it was hilarious and fun, and we got to sleep late and not have to go to our classes, Ms. Howe said. This region is accustomed to flash floods. They come and they go. Ms. Lindley, the former counselor, said the grief alone is so constricting. I couldn't help but put myself in that situation and wonder what decisions I would have made in the dark, in the cold, in the water with young children, she said. It's horrific and it's terrible and it's unpreventable and it's so frightening. Um, I have trouble with the unpreventable part. I mean, but I want to let go of that because, yeah, this is just kind of a freak accident in a sense. But, we all do everything we can to try to prevent freak accidents. I just don't want to be blaming the victims whatsoever, of course. Absolutely. The campers from the Bubble Inn and Twin Cabins who were killed included Hadley Hannah, 8, known for her sneak attack hugs and for teaching her classmates how to tie their shoes, and Mary Barrett Stevens, 8, who doted on her dog Pete and enjoyed playing cards and the tile game Rummikub, I think is how you say it, Rummikub, with her family and friends. And Mary Grace Baker, who was cast as an angel in the production of the Nutcracker Ballet and had dreams of one day performing as Clara. Renee this is a tough last name, Smajstrla. Only 2 vowels. Smagistra, I can't even. Renee. We'll just go with Renee. 8, had a big brace-toothed smile, which I might have soon too. Warning. I have a consultation with an orthodontist next week. Fierce dance moves and many pink outfits that matched her bold personality. 9-year-old Janie Hunt's attendance at Mystic was part of a family tradition. She was known for her math skills and for inventing new holiday rituals like scavenger hunts. Those little girls were precious, said Ms. Clement, the counselor. Their love was overwhelming for everything and everyone around them. The family of Ms. Childress, one of the Bubble Inn counselors, said in a statement that the 18-year-old had spent her final days doing what she loved most, caring for and mentoring little girls. It actually says caring for and mentoring young girls. Her colleague, Ms. Ferruzzo, sacrificed her own life to try to save the lives of her Bubble Inn campers, her family said in a statement. Ms. Ferruzzo's Bible was found in the wreckage at camp among toppled trees, mud-covered children's clothing, and sodden photographs. She had highlighted Revelation 21:4, her family said. He will wipe away every tear from your eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. And it ends there. It's just so devastating. It just breaks my heart. So I was going to keep this short. I've got dinners waiting for me and it's super late. It's like 10:15. So yeah, thanks for watching, and let's just pray for those families and pray for the recovery, those that have severe PTSD, those who have been injured with physical injuries as well, and just praying for those who lost their lives, that they're at peace. It seems counterintuitive to say that, but I mean, drowning is a rough way to go. a really rough way to go, especially being caught off guard in the middle of the night like that. It's pretty unreal. So yeah, I feel like the floods have kind of taken a back seat now with all of the horrific um, political shenanigans with little e. So I think I have a couple of notes. Let me see. Um, so right before I came on, there was an announcement that Pamela Bondi said that she's going to just go ahead and reveal all of the information and all of the files tomorrow because, transparency. Right. Yeah, just like they've been saying for years. Um, so let's see. I don't know. I'm kind of lost with just with grief, overwhelmed with grief from that article. We all know probably about in my live yesterday, one of the viewers, one of the commenters alerted us all to the fact that Maureen Comey had just been fired. She was the prosecuting attorney against Diddy, Maxwell, and Jeffrey. And her last name is Comey, so you know who her father is. And she put an open letter, I think, online today about how she was fired without cause. It kind of seemed to me like a scapegoat move because a lot of people in MAGA have been calling for Pamela Bondi to quit or get fired. And it doesn't seem like either of those things are going to happen with her. So it almost seemed like Maureen Comey was like a sacrificial lamb or something. I don't know. The whole thing is just an atrocious train wreck, in my opinion. It's just really atrocious and disgraceful. I mean, this is what our government is coming down to is a bunch of men acting like teenage boys who can't keep it in their freaking pants that have a thing for teenage girls or something, allegedly. Like, absolutely disgusting. And then the irony of these little girls, out of these 28 victims, 18 of them were 8-year-old girls. I'll run over some of the numbers again. 5 of them were the 9-year-old girls. One of them was a 10-year-old girl. And then you had the 18 and 19-year-old counselors, and then the 70-year-old owner. I think that accounts for all of them. 26, 27, that would maybe be one too many. Right, because I think I counted the counselors twice. Wait, 18 plus 11 would be, I can't count. No, 18 plus 5. So 18 8-year-olds, 5 9-year-olds. Sorry, numbers in my brain are just swimming. So that's 23 little ones, third graders. And then the 10-year-old. So that's 24. And then the 2 counselors that were 18 and 19. So that's 25 and 26. And then I think his name is Jim Eastman, the owner, the 70-year-old. So that makes 27. And one of the articles said 27, but I think the article that I just read said 28. So anyway, I did see some articles that had each one of them named with their age and like a little obituary for each one. So I'll put a link to that in the description for anybody who's interested in knowing more about those young souls who were taken too soon. And on that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Again, it is Thursday, July 17th. How quickly the summer goes by, huh? Because a lot of schools start in August. And it's almost 10:30 at night. It's just 10:21 on the Eastern Seaboard, Eastern Standard Seaboard time. Love and light. It's a lot of heavy stuff. I just really felt compelled to put this little video up. And yeah, I looked more into the 1 minute video that got taken down by YouTube. And in their email, they said something about how they had a change of the guidelines. So I found that interesting. So as far as I knew, the guidelines, I was good, but I tried to find out the detail of what the change in the guidelines was. I even sent them an email, but I haven't gotten a reply. So we'll see. It's too bad because um, I think that message in that 55-second video was very important. It was to me anyway. And I'm just going to wrap it up because I want to just sign off and say love and light. Take good care of yourself, get good rest, and stay hydrated. Eat your vegetables and protein, get exercise, take good care of yourself. Just be yourself. And that's the most important thing. Just accept yourself where you're at, accept those around you where they're at. And we will hopefully see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a good night and take care.